All right. All order. Pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Ms. Hanling is here. Ms. Ballantyne, not Ms. Hammond. Here. Mr. Jane.
Here.
Mr. Larson.
Here.
Mr. Samuel Lamb.
Here.
And Mr. Schultz is absent as well.
All right. Moving on, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
Move to approve the agenda as presented.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a second. Let's vote.
I don't have anything on my screen.
Would you like to voice vote?
I would love to. So we can, did anybody else get it on their screen?
got
Was me?
I did.
Okay, it's just,
Are you
I'm
eyeing?
an I, yeah.
Are you an eyeing?
I am eyeing.
Okay, we'll call that good then. Hopefully that doesn't continue.
Motion carries 5-0. Next, public announcements, recognitions, upcoming events.
With the end of the school year last Thursday, just quite a few positive things to report. First one is more good news out of the middle school and their student council program there. You had Taylor Wilson and Evie Putnam as Region 5 officers across the state. And then in addition to that, Evie Putnam was elected as the state vice president for JAM. That is the student council version at the junior high and middle school level. So congratulations to her. I'm sure her parents are very proud of that. A couple of athletic related things. Tanner Zastico won the Rock Valley Conference Championship in the discus on May 19th. I'll skip down a little bit too because for the first time in school history, we had an Evansville golfer qualify for the state meet. And then just yesterday, Clyde Johnson finished in a tie for 12th place at the state meet. So some fantastic things in terms of athletics. Also at the end of the school year, the middle school held their Blue Devil Service Day, working not only on that campus, but then around the entire district, including in the school forest that day as well. Our last professional learning day of the year was on the 23rd of May. That afternoon, we did something a little bit different with how we recognized our district retirees and then those that had gotten 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, and 30 years of service. And we got some very positive feedback on how that afternoon went. So we'll make some tweaks, but continue to keep it in that format. The one thing that was a little disappointing is we did not have the educational assistants on a paid day that day, and in the future we'll want to make sure that they're there and a part of it as well. Fine Arts Night was on May 28th, a nice tribute to Cindy Zableski that night as well, an emotional one. On the 30th, two big events. We had the senior walk, which is pretty cool. They walk through the entire district so that kids and their former teachers can see them. That afternoon, if you've never seen the Tryst Talent Show and want to see something very interesting, it's an annual event. 4th and 5th graders who are coming out of their shell, performing in front of their peers, some much more better, more talented than others. But I will say, even those that struggled, their peers were very kind to them, cheered them on. It's really cool to see. Graduation, most of you were there and got to see that. Got some compliments just on, as we mentioned, most people want to be there for seeing their own kid cross the stage and then being able to take pictures. And Mr. Crandall has kept that, short and sweet, and you still get all the student speeches and the faculty elected member to make their speech, but got some positive comments on graduation as well. 8th grade recognition was held during the day, the second to last day of school. That night had one half of the bleachers at the middle school full for, not all 4K, but just Kids Corner graduation. And then last Thursday was our last day of school, so we won't see all of our kids in session until September 2nd. Mr. Schwartz is wildly awaiting the start of not just middle school, summer school, but summer school pop-up programs already started. Oh, and just two upcoming because we're in the summer. There is a JEDI annual meeting, so I'll attend that on behalf of the district to get any updates that they may have for us as part of that program that you have re-upped with as a school board. And then, just as a reminder, hopefully we see some of you there, Strawberry Shortcake Festival for the Evansville Education Foundation is Friday, and that is a huge fundraiser for them, which all that money comes back to our teachers in terms of grants for things that they're looking to do that are pretty innovative ideas.
And is delicious.
Yeah, that too.
No doubt.
All right, if there's no other public announcements, or is there any public presentations?
No.
All right, moving on, district administrator update.
All right, I'll go right into mine. Mr. Schwartz and I have been talking quite a bit about our FastBridge scores. And the example that I give in my report this time is last year's fourth grade class. Fourth grade for Forward is a big year. They take not only the traditional math and reading test, but then they also have social studies and science in there as well. So that's a big year. As we were monitoring those scores that have come in now, we could see that FastBridge was showing our students growing from fall to winter and winter to spring. And so we are anticipating better Forward scores than what we're seeing right now. So we have reached out, Mark individually, myself individually, to Illuminate Education that owns FastBridge, and are not getting a lot of response back. We'll keep pushing, but what we want to know is how can we better predict what our Forward scores are going to be from our FastBridge scores? So if we need to change the benchmark on what it looks like their progress is at that point in time, we can change that. Another thing that we'll put a greater point of emphasis on with Forward testing is, and the board can click on this, the online tutorials and practice tests. The teachers can get in, they can get their kids in, and they can do some work online, which gives them an idea about how they're going to manage their Chromebooks, but then also what kinds of questions are going to be asked as well. Next year, of course, for that third grade class, because of Act 20 and early literacy, they'll have Ames Web, and we'll want to do the same thing. We'll want to match up what our Ames Web scores look like, what our Forward scores look like, to make sure that they are in sync with one another. And if they're not, we want to know why, so we can better predict what Forward will look like in the spring. We just got access to our Forward scores just about a week and a half ago or so. That shouldn't be a problem at the high school, because in the fall, when the 9th, 10th, and 11th graders take that pre-ACT for the first time, it's in the same suite of scores, so they'll have a very accurate predictor. My own daughter came home with her pre-ACT scores, and as a family, we looked at them and went through what they look like, and I think our freshmen, sophomore, and junior parents will really appreciate that in the fall.
So I have a question about, is it that the people with FastBridge aren't responding at all? Have they done any analytics between their data and?
Great question. I'm sure they have, Melissa, but Mark and I have not gotten response from any representative yet.
Oh, so they just haven't answered you.
Yes.
Nice.
On that second page, our communications committee, and I probably don't have the right one there, but we did have our first, we had updated this. Our first communications committee meeting was this past Monday. Even since that time, when we talked a little bit about the website, which will be our primary focus for this first year, Paige has already made some changes. So for example, the parent and faculty members on there wanted to see things like, can we get to the lunch menus right away? For students, it'd be really great if they could get a button right from the first landing page to get to the library pages. Mrs. Crandall and Paige are going to work on that so that it will take them to a general page, and then from there they can get to each school's individual library page. Also working on things like a staff login to all the staff resources right from the front page, so they don't have to dig deeper into the website. That's part of it. And then we also had a fairly in-depth discussion about other goals that we want to work on. I've already reached out to Captivate Media about a promotional video that we would hope to have done by the time open enrollment is in effect for next year, which is in that April window. I did make contact with Big Radio about potential school minute radio ads. Melissa brought up at that point, radio is at least a medium that would probably reach, especially if it was WJVL, a group that we don't have as parents in the district and would be able to hear about updates. The one thing that I found out is they do not have an advertiser for us, so I've got a few names of people that I'll reach out to in town that are already advertising with WJVL and see if they'd like to have their ad associated with a Evansville School Minute. The other few things that we talked about in terms of goals for that communications committee is getting back to an app on the phone, which there is an app currently, it just is not very good. We are working with, most of you have heard of Remind and how our staff communicates through the Remind app. Remind is being bought out by Parent Square, and Parent Square does have an app like that, which we'll be working on in the next year as well. So good start for the communications committee. We're going to do a little bit of research on all those and then come back in August with a meeting. One last thing with that, if you've ever seen we had a fairly lengthy discussion on logos, which ones are being used, are they high quality images so that if we send them out to put on a poster or a t-shirt, that those are high quality images. I want to make clear to everybody in the room now and anybody that's listening, we're not looking to majorly change logos because, as you know, if you start messing with the Blue Devil or other things like that, it's very personal to people. What we'd really be doing is looking at cleaning up and digitizing the current Blue Devil, looking at obviously the same thing for the Trident E. And then what we are really missing at this point is more of an academic shield that you could put on letterhead. And we're already kind of talking about, is there an E? We'll be doing some research, don't worry. Is there an E that is traditional? Like if you look around, you'll see a bunch of different E's used now, 10 years ago, 20 years ago. And so that may be where a group called Foundry, which does a lot of school work with logos, would be able to help. Another really cool thing, in fact, Mr. Crandall just asked the other day, does anybody know what's now attached to the back of the high school? Well, there is now an air quality monitor. It's pretty cool. So if you actually use that QR code, it does show Jeff's paying attention because it wasn't there one day and it was there the next and he found it. So it's now linked to a Rock County Health site. And especially in the last week or so where we've had talks about Canadian wildfires and what the air quality is, they didn't have a lot of data points in the western part of Rock County. So now they've got that. It was in the orange today, which isn't a good color to have, but I did also send that site out to our science teachers throughout the district, and green team members, so they may be able to monitor that and use that data as well.
Cool.
Yeah. By the way, they actually paid us $500 to put that up. It uses a little bit of electricity, and then of course it's connected to our Wi-Fi to translate out. So
I was wondering about that expensive Wi-Fi connection.
We talked also about getting the logos
copyrighted.
copyrighted.
Yeah. So if you copyright your logo, at least in the state of Wisconsin, it's much harder to do on a national or federal level. But if you do that in Wisconsin, and then you do have somebody that is not being friendly with your logos, you can let them know that this is a trademark Wisconsin logo and they can't be doing that. So that makes them stop. Yep. Had training for Alice. This was the first time in 6 years that we had sent staff, really since the pandemic, to Alice training. So this is the trainer training. We had representatives from each building go. So that'll be a point of emphasis in the August in-service to get our staff back up to speed. But then also the real point is the middle and high school to have more realistic intruder drills. Just one minor change from just a few years ago is even when they're barricading a room, they're now saying that they want middle and high school students certainly away from the doorway, but standing, and of course there's something called counters. So kids that age might grab a stapler, might grab a tape dispenser and be ready to throw it at whoever is coming into the room at that point in time. So we're not excited, but it is something that we need to do to stay current with our safety drills. And then last but not least, we are working with Taher. Tom and I met with them not too long ago. One of the big pushes next year will be to try to get more information out from the families from a school level. If you look at those last two, A and B, we've got just over 50% of our students that qualify as free lunch that are not taking the lunch. And almost that same number that qualify for a reduced price lunch that are not taking it. And then it's even worse for breakfast. Only about a quarter of our free and reduced students are taking breakfast. And again, free means free. They can take it and not have to pay for it. And we know, especially in the morning, it's important that kids start out the day not hungry, have a good start to their day. So we will be pushing on that. It also does help our Fund 50, which is our food service. The more reimbursable meals they have from the federal government, the better is the bottom line.
Do you have any insight as to why those numbers are so low?
So when we do deal with families that are either over with their lunch account balances, we provide them with everything that they would need, even the chart that would say what you would qualify for with income. And I don't have great answers for you, Elliot. So some people still will not even fill out the application.
So it's an application process.
Well, then there's a direct certify. So there's other ways that they could already be qualified for free and reduced lunch through some sort of outside program. Let's say it's they've already qualified for Medicaid, for example.
Sure.
So then they would already be in the state system. And I think it's part of that is that the identity of those students are not supposed to be known publicly. So this is a very small group of people that have that data. But what we need to do is make sure that parents are aware and then the students are aware that they could take that free or reduced price meal every single day.
So we have students who have an overdrawn lunch account that would qualify for free lunch?
Not so many of those, yeah. We've done a pretty good job because we're on that several times per year in getting that information to families. Yeah. Unfortunately, even families that struggle because the income levels are pretty higher than you might think, even a family that struggles might not qualify for free or reduced price meals.
So these percentages are people who are,
We have
they've
already,
already done the paperwork and
Yeah.
all that, they're just not using the benefit
or
that we.
they were direct certified through another agency, correct?
And they said this is very consistent with other districts too. So it's more of a
But
larger
do
issue.
do we have data going back? Because I seem to recall that there was a very, very good participation either before or right after COVID.
Yeah, now remember, the district had picked up the bill on free meals there for a little while, and then the federal government had made all meals free to students during the pandemic, so that would have been a part of that. That was great for food service accounts because we were getting federal reimbursed meal prices for all of those.
I'd just be curious about like between 2015 and the pandemic time.
Taher might have some of the,
Should have some kind of data. I just,
It would benefit everybody if we could increase these numbers.
Yeah.
So.
yeah. There was some talk about the federal government just making all school meals free to students because it's a good thing to do, but that obviously has not come to fruition.
We know, or do we ask students at all whether, like, how many of the students who don't eat breakfast at school, how many of them are eating breakfast at home?
So Taher has some of that information, but we have sent out a survey on their behalf. And so they've gotten some information like that, but they still can't. I think what they're asking us to do is to better communicate with our families since we're more of a trusted source, whether it's the classroom teacher or the building principal, to let them know. And again, those will be calls that we could make from the district office because that's confidential information. We could call to just say, hey, just so you know, your student or students qualify, but they're not currently taking. If they want, they could take breakfast and lunch.
Alright, any more questions for Mr. Perry? That presentation on changes to activities athletic handbooks.
Before, or as Kendall is coming up, I just provided both in the public and in the board section. These are annual, and you're gonna see it next time with the student handbooks as well. I think last year, right when I came in, and we were matching up the student handbook with the athletic and activities and athletic handbook. This year, I asked Kendall just to put the two activities and athletic handbooks together. This has been approved every year by the board, so what I asked Kendall to do, so that you don't have to read, a 10-page document every year, is why don't we highlight what the changes are, so you know what that looks like, and then go from there. And then the other thing, before Kendall starts, is there have been some changes to name, likeness, image at this level, and if you're paying attention to the national, the same thing on the college level now. Apparently, like colleges can pay their athletes themselves now. And then a huge change in contact days. It used to be 5 days during the summer, and Kendall will talk about how that is basically unlimited at this point. So, Mr. Butch, and I'll turn it over to you.
Good evening, everybody. So just to highlight a couple quick changes. First off, with the high school handbook, two minor changes. Just updating the lettering policy for our bowling and our clay target teams to better align with our varsity level athletics. And then just a reclassification of the clay target team from the co-curricular section to the activity section. Again, just little organizational changes to the high school handbook. The middle school handbook, one big change is we are re-implementing our academic grading standard for student eligibility. If you recall, during the transition to targets-based grading, we removed the academic standard, and then now we are re-implementing that academic standard, reflecting more of a traditional grading style coming back to the middle school.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Kendall, but that was really coming from the staff, right? Because
Yep.
I think what staff was seeing is a student might be failing their class or doing very poorly with a lot of missing assignments, and they were still allowed to participate, which wouldn't happen at the high school. And the staff said we need to have some accountability for students to participate.
Correct, and the way the athletic schedules line up at the middle school, it would not be beneficial for us to implement a academic grading standard to like a term 1, term 2, because our middle school seasons are so short that let's say a winter sport could go all year without having a grade check, while fall would have maybe 1 or 2. So the missing work part of the academic grading standard just aligns more with what the staff would like. And then the no F policy aligns better with what we follow at the high school in terms of terms. And then, so those are the two, that's the big change for the middle school handbook that would need to be voted on next Wednesday.
Can I ask a question about this?
Yeah.
This would apply to activities and co-curriculars, not just athletics.
Correct.
So there's just some language in here that is strictly about athletics, like even the second sentence. First of them is like fostering of both academic and athletic success, which kind of reads
Yep.
as if this is
Yep.
all about athletics,
We
so I would
can-
just
I
tweak
can
that.
go back and tweak that. Yep, absolutely. That's a good catch. Thank you.
I was wondering for the letter criteria, it says maintain academic eligibility. Does that mean if you get dinged for one of these and then you fix it, that you no longer qualify? Or is it just if you fix it, does that kind of repair your letter?
So that would come to if you are missing any competitions because of an academic violation.
So if you fix it in time for the competition, then
Correct.
you're still good to go. Okay,
Yeah.
makes sense.
Students are very motivated to be able to participate, so it's amazing how fast they get things done.
Yes, absolutely.
setting the expectations at the middle school so that they align with the high school, I think is really critical, because I feel like in the past, you've had like shocked freshmen like, I'm gonna have to do this in middle school. So, that's a very,
Yeah, and I remember when we implemented or when we removed the academic grading standard from the middle school handbook, that was one of your concerns.
Come first, full circle.
Full circle.
yeah.
So those are the changes to the handbook, and I will definitely make sure that language gets fixed before next week, or before the next meeting. In terms of the summer contact, yes, the WIAA did approve a policy allowing unlimited summer contact between coaches and student athletes. It was previously limited to 5 days of coaching, but it was unlimited open gyms. So they just changed the language to allow our coaches to coach instead of just supervise. And those dates, it's unlimited between the dates of June 1st to June 30th, and then July 7th through July 26th for football, and then July 31st for all other sports. Really basically they take the week of the 4th off.
Do you have any insight as to why it was limited previously?
I do not.
Okay, fair.
I do not. I always remember going back, and probably when Mitch played too, it was the 5 days of contact, but then unlimited open gyms.
Huh.
Yeah.
My experience, Elliot, is you would have a coach at open gyms,
Yeah.
but they couldn't have it, they could supervise, but they couldn't have that coaching component.
Yeah.
There might be somebody else there that was a volunteer that might do some of that, but the coach could not.
Curious.
And also, I think every school has a different determination of what an open gym really looks like.
Sure,
So this kind of just solidifies it.
sure.
And then another rule that the WIA passed is that NIL, which we're hearing a lot about at the collegiate level. The WIA passed allowing high school athletes to benefit from their name, image, and likeness, similar to the collegiate level, although there are certain rules implemented at the high school level. For example, students cannot, I know this seems kind of straightforward, but they cannot advertise any alcohol or substance use or abuse items. And then also there are some rules prohibiting athletes from sponsoring or advertising from businesses that are tied to the school district. For example, alumni that own the company. So there are some rules like that. But otherwise, students are free to compensate from their name, image, or likeness.
And I think something specific, I know we talked about, Kendall, like they wouldn't be able to show up in an Evansville jersey, correct? Like it could
Yes.
be a blue
Yep.
jersey, but not anything.
Yep,
with a
they're
blue logo.
not allowed to advertise their high school uniform. They could wear, like, for example, I bring up the wrestling singlet all the time. The wrestling singlet cannot have Evansville or cannot have our logo on it, but it can be royal blue.
All right, is there any other questions for Mr. Woodgen?
I guess, what's the difference between a co-curricular and an activity, and why would that switch over significantly?
For us, in terms of aligning, it just allows all of our activities now, you can letter in.
Oh, I see, okay.
Whereas not all co-curriculars can letter. And so for us, it was just aligning in terms of. Okay. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Next is school to career report.
I have a little longer introduction for Mrs. Guard. So this is Linda's 4th year in the district.
We can do this, how do you have time to be here?
And so in those 4 years, and again, she only works half-time, so on an average week, 20 hours per week. When she inherited this program and the youth apprenticeship program, which is a huge part of it, in the 2 years before she got here, we had 6 students in youth apprenticeship. And you're gonna see that growth that she'll talk about tonight from 6 and 2 years to 8, 23, 31, and now next year, 40 youth apprentices. Why is that important? It's a great training ground for kids. And I think Linda will probably talk a little bit about this. This just is not kids that are going into the trades. Like we have, I think it's 10, our highest number of kids in one particular career cluster is in health sciences. So these could be leading to down the road of a 4-year degree. So she's really done a great job at growing this program. I'd also point out that 2 other things. She's got 32 local businesses that she's currently working with. And if you want to develop that community relationship, this is a very positive way to do that. There's also some money tied to this. I believe it was just something like $27,000 came back to the district, because anytime we get a student in a certification program, Act 59 pays $1,000 for that certification. And that ranges from CNA, I think we're going to explore ASC, which is automotive certification again, Microsoft Word Suite, some of those. And then finally, I wanted to mention, because this is something that I want to gauge after Linda's done tonight, the board's appetite for this, because we have previewed this now. This will be the second time that Mr. Schwartz and I have talked about it. We are really looking for not only help for Linda, but also a transition plan. And so Linda's doing all of this on 20 hours a week, 50%. And so what could expand in this program if we had more help is not only youth apprentice and getting that help, and I just go to the numbers, right? If Linda's got 40 students she's working with, that's 3 meetings a year with all of those employers. That's 120 meetings just for youth apprenticeship. And we have 180 days in the school year. So 120 meetings in that amount of time. In addition to that, you could have a work experience program, which is like youth apprenticeship, except there's not a college level course attached to that. And even job shadowing, where you could set up somebody that said, I'd really like to just, be able to watch a carpenter in action, something like that. In addition, if we were to get more help in this position, right now, Linda's got, I think it's going to be, I can't remember, Linda, you can mention it too, but there's a number of our CNA students based on when they have to work and when we're offering classes that are going to take an online statistics course. Well, that's through JEDI, which is great. But then if we had more help for Linda, somebody could be monitoring how those students are doing in those JEDI courses, especially if they fall behind. JEDI will let you know if they're on pace or not on pace, and that person could follow up with this. In addition, there's a state requirement for academic and career planning. Right now, that's split between our middle school counselor and our 2 high school counselors. But if we did have extra help from Linda, we would have more of a true 6-12 approach to this and more consistency across those. And then finally, just last but not least, remember that the Dane County School Consortium is done as of June 30th. So some of that help is no longer going to be there. And then final thing is if we were to get Linda some help, and you're going to see how all these great things that she's doing with this program on a limited basis, but if we were to get her some help, we have a bit of an expansion of the budget, which it could handle for next year with how we're situated, because you'd have like 1.5 FTE or people in that role. But the following year, Linda's portion of that could be written into the youth apprenticeship grant, so we just have a 1.0 position when we really have 1.5 people working in that. And then at whatever point Linda's going to ride off into the sunset, instead of somebody having to take the reins without any knowledge, you'd have somebody right there that's done all this with Linda, so you wouldn't lose those 32 businesses and all those contacts. It could simply continue on. So once Linda's done, and maybe Mark's got some comments, I'll ask if the board is willing to take that on an action item at the end of June. Mark and I feel strongly, Linda and I feel strongly too, that it could really grow the program even further and make it what it could be. We do get kids that from even some of our smaller districts around where this isn't big an opportunity that we do think we could draw into Evansville because they would have that. And our industrial base that's here as well. So I'll finally be quiet now, Linda.
So, hello, I'm Linda Gard, for those of you that don't know me. I think most people know me. So thanks to Nate and Mark for their support over all these years. Like Nate said, I'm finishing up my 4th year as a school career coordinator. I work part-time. This is my retirement gig. I've retired a couple of times already from the district. And it's just a wonderful program, and I hope I can keep doing it for as long as the district wants me to. But for the last couple of years, I have really been working towards a solution of how to keep this program sustainable and going. When I decide that I want to step back a little bit from the day-to-day management of the program. So after we go through these bullet points, I'm just here to answer some questions and just provide further feedback. Hopefully you got a chance to look at this report already in the board packet. But this really is a snapshot of the 24-25 school year, but a lot of these things I've been growing since the 21-22 school year when I came on in this role. And when I came on in 21-22, it was a brand new position. So just for some of the new people here that weren't part of that. So we've always been members of the Dane County School Consortium. When I did this job in Verona, Verona was also a member of that, so that's really all I know at this point is how to run the youth apprenticeship program through the consortium. And that consortium is dissolving at the end of June. Taking with it some really good resources and support that they've always provided all of us coordinators in the high school. We are jumping over to the South Central Wisconsin Workforce Development Board, who is going to be managing our grant. And things are falling into place as far as their support with the high schools. And I don't anticipate some of the things will remain the same, but I do think some of the areas where we're going to be more hands-on locally will be with the financial part of the grant. There's going to definitely be more financial duties coming along now that we don't have the Dane County School Consortium to handle that task. And I think as far as like the marketing and PR and the recruiting efforts that Dane County School Consortium has always been a part of. Future Quest, if any of you are familiar with Future Quest, which is an 8th grade career exploration event up at Alliance Center, that's all been through the Dane County School Consortium. So those kind of things probably aren't going to continue with the work with South Central Wisconsin Workforce Development Board. So I anticipate having to do some of those career exploration events, marketing, PR, information nights, banquets, the banquet that we've always held up at the consortium. I anticipate us having to do more of that on a local level. So that's definitely going to be an extra layer of time that we're going to need to spend on the program. I've attended, I attend monthly school to career coordinator meetings where I'm meeting with all the other coordinators at, when we were in the consortium, there was 17 school districts in that consortium. Evansville was the only Rock County school. New Glarus was the Greene County school, and then everybody else was Dane County schools. But invaluable meetings, couple of hours. We always met the second Thursday of the month, and we basically talked and made sure that we were doing what we needed to do in the building, at the building level for the students. We did have the Future Quest this year held at the Alliant Energy Center. Evansville Middle School 8th graders have always attended, and it's a very valuable experience. But again, I don't think that that's going to continue. So unfortunately, this was probably the last year. I help out a little bit with the High School Academic and Career Planning Committee. To be honest with you, this year I've had to kind of let that go because my numbers have grown so much that I've just really had to focus on the YA programming. So I haven't been involved with the ACP planning. So, but that is something that this position should be involved in because a lot of it pertains to work-based learning opportunities. We're gonna pick up, or I do manage the Carl Perkins federal grant for the district. I write the grant, I submit the grant, I go out to the CTE department and ask for their wish list. That's something that I've done since I've been here, and then I do all the reporting for the Incentive 59 state grant, which is the industry recognized certification grant. That's the one that Nate alluded to, that we had 45 industry certificate earners last year, so we're receiving a payment of $28,000 for our graduating class of 2024. And those certificates include our MOS, our Microsoft Office certification, which is a course we offer at the high school, the CNA students that complete and are becoming certified, which we are now offering that course upstairs in our own health science lab that was developed last year. All of the YA students are considered industry earned certificates, so we count all of them. I've had a handful of kids that earn their firefighter 1 and 2 hazmat, EMR certs, EMT certs. And I also had a student this year for the first time earn his pre-apprentice heavy equipment operator certification through Destinations Career Academy, which is an online school up through the McFarland School District. Some of the certifications that I'm working on, because I'm always trying to embed certifications into our curriculum to be able to report more students and give them more opportunities to earn certifications. I'm working with the art department on Adobe, all the Adobe suite and all those packages like Photoshop, and I don't know Adobe that well, but all of the things that come with Adobe are opportunities for students to earn a certification. And then I'm also working with one of the new tech ed teachers for the precision measurement instrument certification. And he is going to go and he's going to the training program this summer, so he will be, he's gonna train the trainer, I guess is what the program is. And then we're hoping to embed that curriculum into some of the tech ed classes along with some of the math classes at the high school, so that students can sit for that certification and earn that certification at the end of their school year. Let's see, I do the graduate follow-up report through WISE Data. That's part of the Carl Perkins grant. I do that every year. I contract with, I'm the coordinator for our contracted Black Hawk Tech Nursing Assistant Program, where we are offering that upstairs at the high school for cohort groups of 8 each. So one semester is 8 kids and second semester is 8 kids. And I work with Black Hawk Tech on the calendar, submitting dates, making sure that the kids are all ready to go for that program, making sure that they send me an instructor. And then I work with administration on signing that contract for that contracted course through Blackhawk. I did have 8 senior students this year complete the co-op program. This will be the last year we will be offering the traditional Evansville High School co-op program. A lot of you probably remember that if you're an Evansville alumni. I was in the co-op program when I was in high school here. It's been a great program over a long time. The reason that we're discontinuing it is for a couple of reasons. Number one is our co-op program has never been state certified here at Evansville High School. It's been a work-based learning program for students, and we've dedicated the time and resources to it, but it's never been state certified, so there's really no reporting of it where we're getting any compensation back to help us continue to build our CTE programming, which is kind of what these programs are for with the grants. And the other point is that there are now 16 program areas under the Youth Apprenticeship Program with over 84 pathways. So there really isn't any job that a high school student cannot do as a junior or senior in high school that we can't really fit under the Youth Apprenticeship umbrella. The Youth Apprenticeship umbrella is a state certified program through Department of Workforce Development. The students earn 2 high school credits for it. There's some rigor to it, there's expectations, there's accountability, and it's just a solid work-based learning program that really, I think basically will cover the needs of students that want to work during their high school career. Start College Now, I do all the Start College Now coordination duties, involving guiding the students through the process, taking their applications, meeting with them, filling out their applications, making sure they're signed up for their courses, monitoring them through their courses, with their advisors down at the colleges. A lot of these students are my YA students taking this college coursework because of related coursework requirements for their YA job. But there are a handful of students that are not in the YA program, but are still taking college coursework at the technical college level. And we mainly work with Black Hawk Tech and Madison College for those two, for the two technical colleges in this area. I continue to meet with businesses. This is a full-time job, 7 days a week. If I'm ever out in town, I usually come home with a note in my purse. It's kind of like when I used to run the lunch accounts for the school district. I was always coming home with people's lunch checks in my purse to deposit when I went back to work on Monday. This is kind of the same thing. I mean, that happened all the time. So this is the businesses that are so far. I've got 3 or 4 more businesses already signed up for the 25-26 school year for the students that already have jobs. But this is a good handful of this. These are the businesses that students were employed with for this school year. So I think it's important to mention about how we build these partnerships with these businesses. Not only do I get businesses to come in at the career fair, I have quite an extensive listserv of who I reach out to for my career fair in the spring. But a lot of times I make partnerships with new businesses because of the students. It is the students' responsibility to find their own jobs as a YA student. I help them, I can send them leads, but it is really truly up to them to find their position. I just don't grab a job out of my job hat and land it in somebody's lap and say, you're gonna start next Monday. These students have to find their own jobs. As soon as their applications are approved by me, we write their resume, I help them with their resumes, and then I give them ideas on where to go. And they're hitting the ground and they're dropping their resumes off because I encourage them to make face-to-face contact with the businesses of where they might want to apply to. And their objective statement on their resume says, I am an upcoming junior or senior at Evansville High School looking for a youth apprenticeship program in the manufacturing sector, specifically welding. Okay, that would be an example of an objective statement. So a lot of times students are going to different businesses that I haven't even heard of, or they're finding businesses through family members, through neighbors, you know, whatever the case may be, and then they come back to me and say, hey, this guy wants to talk to you. He took my resume and I think he's interested, but he doesn't know anything about the program, so could you please contact them? So then that's when I step in and make contact as the school to career coordinator and start that relationship building and see if we can make a youth apprenticeship partnership work for the student. So a lot of these businesses are really working with our Evansville students because of our students. So I just wanted to share that because a lot, you know, it's kind of, this is a really, it's a group effort. It's not just me, you know, doing all the work. I'm talking to students and working with them and their families. I'm working with a family right now that has some contacts in Beloit that I think will be a new employer. So it just really is, it just is a lot of conversations and a lot of networking to get these businesses to sign on. I do the recruiting, the information meetings. I do the face-to-face meetings. I meet with parents a lot face-to-face about the program when their students expressed interest because they want more information on it. I do the schedules for all the youth apprenticeship students to make sure that they have work release time built in, and that's usually done before they go interview because it's a little difficult for them to go interview if they don't know when they have work release time. But we're getting that process down a little bit more. Each year I do this, I get a little bit more efficient with my practices. So I really develop their high school schedules, you know, in addition with the counseling help, with the counselor help, but I help them build the work release into their schedule to make sure that they have the 6 credits, they're meeting all their graduation requirements, You know, they're in the building for 2 blocks a day, which is a requirement that we're asking for next year. So that's pretty time consuming in the spring. Spring is a pretty busy time of the year for this position. And then, of course, like Nate alluded to, there's 3 required meetings for every youth apprenticeship student. The first one is always my signing meeting, which is my face-to-face signing agreement, where I require parent, student, employer, and myself to be at that meeting. We go over the handbook, we go over the program guide, we go over parent do's and don'ts. We go over everything we can possibly go over, program expectations, so that everybody is hearing the same message at the signing. I've just found that by doing that in person, it's just, it helps me with the success of the students completing. And then I usually do a mid-year check-in. I try to do that in person, but some I do through Zoom, some I do through email, just kind of depending on the situation. And then, of course, the year end is when we have to do the completer meetings, fill out all the job guide information, make sure their hours are there, their coursework is done, and then all of that paperwork has to be sent up to DWD, which is what I'm working on right now for our completers. This year I had 38 youth apprentices, 6 juniors. Of those 38 will continue to next year. Of the 32 graduates this year, 3 are entering, actually that should be 4. I just found out another one last week. So 4 are entering registered apprenticeship programs with their respective employers. 2 are entering the 2-year technical school, pursuing the YA pathway. And these are all questions we have to ask at their completer meeting because the state also tracks this data. 17 are entering 4-year college institutions pursuing their YA pathway, which is a big chunk, a big number. And then 10 are entering the workforce with their employer. So they're they're staying with their employer, they're gonna continue on with the employer to work, but they're not planning on doing any post-secondary training at this point. So that's where the 10 come in. You know, I really want, you know, I guess the most important bullet item on this section is that 17 number, entering 4-year college institution, going into the pathway that they've just completed, because I just had a conversation with a friend over the weekend. There is the mindset that, you know, the youth apprenticeship program is just for our shop kids, and that's not the case. This program is for any student, any junior, senior student in high school that has a plan and has some interest, career interest that they want to jumpstart as a high school student. So it's for all of our students. And that's the kind of message that I'm really trying to get out into the community about how, you know, it's a wonderful program for any student, regardless of what their post-secondary plans may or may not be after high school.
Can I jump in, Linda? What I've found too is where sometimes students are going into a 4-year college or university, they think they have an idea of what they want to study, but they're paying, you know, thousands of dollars or more per credit. Here, you can test that out. Is this something that I really want to do? And you can confirm that it is, or you find out, boy, I thought I would like this, but I don't. And it eliminates some of those decisions that you might be paying for at a 4-year university.
And the UW system, with the exception of Madison, just put into place any youth apprenticeship completers that have that on their high school transcripts will earn 3 college elective credits as a YA completer. So doesn't matter what they're going into at the 4-year at the UW system. If they are a YA completer, they will get 3 college credits, 3 elective college credits for the completion of the program, which, you know, it's about $1,000. So that's, you know, pretty good deal for our students. My projected enrollment for next year, again, I'm rolling up 6. From this year, they'll continue as level 2 students, and then I'm projecting, well, that says 32, but it should be 34. 34 new apprentices. So I'm looking at 40 new youth apprentices, or 40 youth apprentices for next year, and I've already got 40 youth apprentices signed. and I haven't even started the school year yet. So that number is definitely going to increase because I'll get another round of youth apprenticeship students in August and September and October. It's pretty unheard of to have 40 students already signed by the end of May. So it will be higher than that. Some of the new programs this year was the education and training, both school-age children and early childhood teacher. Evansville, Levi Leonard hired 2 of our YA students, and it was very successful, and we're hoping to continue that, that offering for our YA students. The business management and administration, the administrative professional and human resource assistant, I had 2 students complete in those new pathways. There's a new law, public safety, corrections and security, and fire protection and law enforcement. I have not had anyone in that program yet, but that is a new pathway. Government and public administration, project management, that would be working for, possibly the city. I have not had anyone in that program yet. Barber and cosmetologist, I have had students in that program, but it's never been an official YA program, and now it is. So that's really a nice program for students that are interested in that industry. And then the transportation, distribution, and logistics program, which has always been in existence, they are adding, really getting gung-ho on the airport operations and the aviation maintenance because there's such a shortage. So the airports are starting, like Rock County Airport, what's the Madison Airport called? It's got a name. It's not Dane County, but there's like a smaller business next to the Dane County Airport. Yeah, they're really getting on board with taking on YA students. So that's a new program for students. Highlights, I offered the BTC contracted nursing assistant course on site this year for the first time. 16 students completed and all 16 became certified. So I'm 100%. So I'm very, very proud of that accomplishment. We have Miss Peggy Maves, an Evansville alumni. The students just love her, and we're hoping that she can continue to teach our course for us for years to come because she does a great job. I'm very proud of Zachariah Jones. He completed his year 1 of the 2-year technical diploma at BTC in their diesel and heavy equipment program. So he will be starting with year 2. He's got year 1 done as a high school senior. And he also completed as a level 2 youth apprentice with Larson Acres. So not only has he been working out at Larson Acres substantial hours for 2 years, he has been going to school every day down at Blackhawk Tech to finish year 1 of the diesel and heavy equipment technician program, and he is now working full-time and has been picked up by Midstate Implement in Janesville, and they are going to pay for his 2nd year of Blackhawk Tech, for his 2nd year towards that diploma. So that's I think a really nice success story to share with the community. All of my construction kids and manufacturing kids and automotive kids, I require them to complete their OSHA 10 safety certs through CareerSafe. So I had 16 of them complete that this year. They do that online on their own time. So it's about a 15-hour course that I pay for, but they complete on their own time. So that's a great accomplishment for those students because they'll have that safety cert, forever. And then I plan and kind of run the annual career fair every year. And this year I had over 65 presenters, which is the most I've ever had. And they represented all 16 career clusters. So I think that I always get really good feedback for that career fair. So it's kids like it, and the community and the businesses like to come to that and showcase their careers. So those are kind of my highlights for the year. Any questions on my report?
I have some questions. First, I'll say this is just incredible. My main question, I guess, is how in the world do you do this only part-time? But specifically, so one thing you mentioned that at the year-end report you sent some information up to DWD. What is DWD?
Department of Workforce Development, State of Wisconsin.
Thank you.
Wisconsin Department of Workforce Development. So they're the organization that run the registered apprenticeship program in the state of Wisconsin. So this youth apprenticeship feeds into the registered apprenticeship in all the areas. So for example, any electrical fundamentals YA student, if they are picked up by their YA employer, that employer sponsors them and then they roll right into a registered apprenticeship with that employer. That's where I had said 4 of the students were doing that. And then they get credit for the hours and the youth apprenticeship 1 or 2 years that they did as a high school student towards their journeyman or masters or whatever it is that they're doing in the registered apprenticeship program. So, and you know, the registered apprenticeship program just added education. That's a registered apprenticeship in the state of Wisconsin now because of the shortage of teachers, and they've also added nursing. So not only do you have your traditional trades, you know, like most people are familiar with, you also, they are starting to add other areas of where there's a labor shortage in the state. And education and nursing are 2 of the new ones. Yeah. So, yeah, it's really nice when the students roll over into a registered apprenticeship. It really is just a good seamless transition. They stay with the same employer. They've got a sponsor. They just hit the ground running after graduation. They bump their wage up about, I don't know, $10, $15 from a youth apprentice to a registered apprentice. And then they just continue earning while they're learning for the next 3, 4, 5 years, whatever, you know, their apprentice requires for their training.
Yeah, that's excellent. I'm wondering with the new YA programs you mentioned here, and some of them I see on the chart that we have, as you mentioned, don't have any students who are currently enrolled in them, like the Law, Public Safety, Corrections, and Security one. So where do these new YA programs come from? Like how do they get created?
DWD.
DWD creates them. Okay, got it. Okay, so that explains that.
Yeah.
And then my last question, I think, was, I mean, clearly you don't have any, you're doing a great job of getting new students interested, and these, the 30, you're expecting 34 new apprentices. Are these mostly upcoming juniors?
They're mostly seniors.
Mostly seniors, okay.
Yeah, I have actually 5 juniors this year so far. The rest are all seniors.
Okay, so I'm curious about how you're clearly doing a good job of getting the word out one way or the other. I'm curious how that happens when you have like amongst sophomores. How do you let them know that next year they're going to be eligible for these programs?
So I target the sophomore class usually. I have had Dane County School Consortium come in and present to the entire sophomore class in November before they're starting to pick their classes for the next year. I send emails out. I send a CTE newsletter out every month to all the families in the district, and some of them I target certain grades. So either by using our social media, my CTE monthly newsletter that I send out to families through our message center, or I bring in a speaker to promote the program to my sophomores, to my current sophomores. Those are usually the 3 ways. I also go into the classroom and promote the program in the classrooms that have the majority of 10th grade students. So I go in and present the program and hand out flyers and things like that.
That's great. Thank you so much.
It sounds to me like, well, for one thing, I just want to say, when I read this, I was just so excited to read your, and I just was so proud that these kids are having these opportunities. But it sounds to me like you're also providing a lot of professional advice, professional support to these kids, teaching them, you know, a lot of 16, 17-year-old kids are just not quite there with responsibility and stuff like that, which we've actually heard of in the community. And this is filling quite a niche, and I just wonder, I mean, that's just like another layer on top of that, but your numbers are telling me that you're being successful because people wouldn't hire these people on.
Well, it's a partnership. You know, the employers that are taking on the high school students, you know, there's a mentoring program that they go through.
Okay.
And they, you know, it's, you know, it's a partnership between all of us. It's
So the workforce development gives them some, like, reinforcement to do this thing.
Yeah, they do some, you know, they do some training with the new mentors, the new supervisors, just like this is what it means to work with a high school student. And, you know, this is kind of your expectation as a mentor, you know, and how to follow the job guide that the students need to complete at the end of their gig with the employer. But, you know, the parents are involved, I'm involved, the employer's involved, the supervisor's involved. It's really kind of a team effort. And, you know, I kind of just coordinate those conversations because I'm the one that's in the high school and I'm the one that sees the students. But there's a lot of people helping these kids to be successful, not just me. I provide the opportunity and I get them in the door, but I can't keep them in the door, you know? It's like, that's up to the student. So, but I can, you know, I try to support them the best I can, but they're getting support from their employer and their mentors as well, because that's an expectation of being a YA employer.
That's great.
But there's a lot of counseling going on. There's a lot of hand holding. But you know, it's always worth it in the end because they just grow so much through this program. And I just want them to be successful, and I want this to be a good experience. I don't want them to be stressed out about that. If they're stressed out about it, then we need to go to plan B. So, and I think Mitch can attest to Westfall, you know, they took 8 students this year, I think, Mitch. Yep. They had room for 8 YA students this year. I had 5 Evansville students apply because every high school boy wants to be an electrician. So I had 5 seniors apply with Westfall. The person came right down to the high school and interviewed them on site. We ran interviews every 45 minutes through the morning. And one of our high school students got a job offer and he has started. So, but you know, that's the other thing with this program is these jobs are becoming highly competitive. Employers are finding out about this program and they're finding that they really need to they need to start training their future workforce at a earlier level. So, especially the construction jobs are getting, you know, even 5 years ago, a student could go pretty much anywhere. And if they had a good resume and had a good interview, they would get hired. Well, now it's getting more competitive where, you know, there's gotta be a little bit more, it has to be a little bit more timely and a little bit more organized for the students to get these jobs. So UW Health runs the program. They had 250 applicants this year for 65 YA positions for next year. So they gave 250 phone interviews to potential YA students for next year and hired 65. But they have a team of like 12, you know, people at UW Health that do nothing but work with the YA program. So it's just those kind of numbers that I think is pretty apparent that this program isn't going to go away. It's been here since 1991. The Youth Apprenticeship Program has been in existence since 1991. And yes, it did start out in the trades, like it was more for some of the trades that were the registered apprenticeships, but it has just grown tremendously over the years. And right now, there's like almost 10,000 youth apprenticeship students in the state of Wisconsin. So it's a very valuable program, and you know, I just can't say enough good about it. And you know, I do the best I can with the time that I'm here, but I would love to be doing it better.
I was so impressed reading through this. I think this is a program that our district should be really proud of. I think it also is really in line with our mission statement of all learners thriving, contributing, belonging. It seems like it serves the needs of kids that might not learn a traditional way or might be engaged in a different way. So
It definitely,
this is something that I believe strongly in. It's really cool. Like, I didn't have a lot of awareness of this, and reading through this is like, oh, like, fantastic. So I just want to really give you credit for that.
Thank you.
You're
Yeah, some kids they just need to be outside and they need to be,
Totally,
working with their hands and they just thrive in that environment.
yeah,
And if you can find the right, partnership with the right mentor and the right employer, it's a win-win
totally,
for everyone.
yeah, thank you.
Can I get a gauge then? So you've heard all the positive things that are happening. You're gonna hear, our opportunities in the budget here ahead. If Mark and I and Jeff, along with Linda, brought a proposal, 2 weeks from tonight to get Linda some help, and again, it would be a 1.0 ad for next year, and that reduces the next year when we write Linda into the grant. But it would allow, again, that seamless transition of this program from when Linda decides she wants to be done, still work on ACP, still give us that online learning component that we need to monitor better, and then expand that component again. As Linda just said, imagine what it could be if she had more time to do this. And again, it would be a 1.0 position increase next year and then back down to 0.5 the year after that. Is there some support there? Because
So you're just talking about for next year, we would have to fund a 1.5 total administrative.
well, Linda's already in there as a 0.5. We'd add a
0.5.
1.0.
But I'm just thinking in
Yeah.
total, in terms of total, so next year will be a total of 1.5.
Correct.
And then the following year, we put a half into the
Into the grant.
grant.
Yes.
So then then it becomes just a 1.0.
And then you do have a transition program then, so Linda can teach that person everything that they would need to know. And then when Linda decides that she does want to be done, we'd be back to a 1.0 position.
Sounds like she's gonna need the Hermione's time turner.
A time to end. Reference to a Harry Potter thing.
She can go to like multiple classes in a day.
Yeah, I really, I thank you for considering adding to the position because I really, I want the program to continue to be successful and, it definitely needs, it needs a person that has more time than I do to do it at its best. I mean, it's running very, very well right now, but there's so many other things we could be doing, in addition and even maybe trying to target more kids. And do some more of that job shadowing piece. Maybe we run the CWC program at the high school, that Craftsman with Character. That we weren't able to get that going this past school year, but those are the kind of pre-apprenticeship programs that also feed into the youth apprenticeship programs that you can do, at the sophomore, junior level if the kids aren't ready for the YA program. And that's important too, because there's a lot of kids I meet that want to do the program, but they're not there. So there's a lot of work for them or not a lot of work, but there's a plan put in place to get them ready for their senior year. And a lot of times that involves job shadows and pre-apprenticeship programs and things like that. And it all takes time to manage those opportunities for kids. And it's really every student's plan looks different. So you're really kind of writing individual education plans for over 40 kids.
Yeah.
And then some other ones that, are trying to get ready for this. Because I've already got parents of 8th graders and freshmen reaching out to me saying they want their student to do this. And can I meet with them as a freshman and put a 4-year plan together for them? So, with more manpower, we could do a better job of that and just be able to make sure that we're not missing anybody that might be interested.
And if I can just jump in, I won't take long at all. I can't sing Linda's praises enough for how she's grown this programming, but the reality is it's just opportunities for kids to leave EHS, career and college ready. With the way she's grown it in such short time, if we're able to get her some additional help and able to grow it even more, that's more opportunities for kids. As families look at Evansville and consider buying a house, or enrolling, we've got a unique situation here in Rock County that can really stand out, and I think we can market that for for sure. Thank you, Linda.
I'd like to also add that, you know, we're working on getting a new, have we hired the new career person that, tech ed?
Yes.
Seems like that could be a good partnership to bring
Absolutely.
in to this whole thing. And, I mean, you can envision Evansville being a destination for these kids to come and get those fundamental skills and be eligible for those and be the best choices for all the various companies to choose for their apprentices. You can see it. I can envision it. This is very exciting.
Yeah, I have a lot of goals that I have written down, but, you know, I think about them.
Okay.
I'd like to create some more
Reach for the stars.
CTSOs. I am hoping our new tech ed teachers will be on board with maybe getting Skills USA off the ground, which is a huge CTSO for a lot of kids to participate in, another extracurricular for kids. I'd really, you know, really like to start focusing and working more with the ACP group or committee when we kind of get that a little bit more organized and really focus on creating a CTE culture in the high school and get all of the core teachers and all of the staff on board, because it really involves everyone in the high school, not just the CTE team. So those are just some goals I've always had, but, you know, it's just, you know, they're things I think about and learn about and have a lot of resources to put into place, but there's always the timing thing. So kind of they're just kind of get pushed back to the back burner, and it would be nice to be able to start working on some of those goals.
Totally. You are taking a temperature check on this.
Yes.
Should we return?
Yeah, so I don't want to, and again, I'm not asking for a vote, but if there's somebody that feels strongly like, I don't want to hear about this again, I do think though that, again, there's a huge opportunity for growth and to get what we could do with this program, because again, Linda's working 20 hours a week and you can see what even that is producing at this point.
My only request is that we could involve Linda in the hiring process.
Sure.
So we
Oh,
find
yeah,
someone
absolutely.
who she feels comfortable working with and transitioning this program to.
I just want to maybe clarify. So the idea would be to hire a 1.0 and keep Linda on as 0.5.
Yes.
And then when Linda decides that she has done all the work that she can, we replace Linda, so we keep it at 1.5?
No, it'd still be 1.0.
Okay.
Yeah, so it really is still doubling, but in the meantime, remember, Linda's position would be written into the apprenticeship grant, so we're not having to pay for that out of our Fund 10. And then it does let them transition, so that we're not losing any of those business partnerships or knowledge.
At some point, we would want to have it be a two-person team again, so that transition could happen.
We have to see how capable this other person is. I think we'll have some strong candidates that want to get into this. You've got a lot of CTE teachers, whether it's FACE, ag, tech, business, that want to do this kind of thing and work with businesses in our local area. I think we'd have a strong pool.
If we continue to grow at the rate that they've grown over the last 4 years,
Exactly.
we might need to have 2.0 people.
Seems like such a great way to just involve the community, to connect with the community and to really be training our students as like future community members, not just.
Well, and that's exactly what we heard, like, between the years of 2015 and 2020. It's like, you're not producing kids that can, like, come and work in a workplace. Have unreasonable expectations of what goes on at work. They last 3 days and they quit. What's going on? You know, I feel like if we can get that word out to the community, hey, you know, we heard you. Look at this great program that helps the kids. I'm so happy about this. This is
Thumbs up for me.
Thank you
All
all.
Thank you, Linda.
Yeah,
Linda.
All right, property and vehicle insurance.
Probably not as an exciting a topic as that, but part of the reason that there was a delay in not having this with our other insurances, our health insurance, dental, vision, long and short-term disability, and life insurance, is we've been waiting a significant amount of time for a renewal bid from ANSI. And I will just leave it at that because it does, I really do think it speaks to customer service. We've had them for a long time, since 2015, but they are not a local company. Their office is a Milwaukee suburb, and we have, Tom and I, in the last 2 years, have not seen them in the district. They don't call us, we call them if we need something or have some sort of a claim. So that was why we wanted to bring in another vendor to bid on this. Tricor is in partnership with all of the organizations that our district is in partnership with. So Tom's a member of WASBO, I'm a member of WASDA, the board is part of WASB. Tricor is a partner in that. The local agent for this area, he is very active. In fact, I gave you a little bit of background on John Gibson. He used to actually be a school board president, so he understands schools very well. You'll notice that the bids came in fairly similar. Tricor's bid for the same range of products. So we're really talking about property insurance, workman's compensation, and then vehicle insurance for the most part. Came in at $757 less than ANSI. Just to give you an idea of why Tom and I are recommending Tricor, John has already been in the district twice, and he's not our agent. Once to talk about what this could look like, and then he just came in again because he travels around, wants to see all of his school districts to ask if we had any questions. The day that we had the hailstorm, I included that in the board packet. John emailed us when he heard what was happening in the area because of his clients. We had to reach out to ANSI. They had no idea that there was a hailstorm in the area. In addition to that, Tricor works with EMC. EMC is a $2 to $3 billion company. One of the companies that we're looking at with ANSI is called CIC. Their assets right now are only about $9 million. So if they have major claims, we're a little bit worried about sticking with them. Mitch asked a great question today. If we switch over to Tricor, but our hail damage insurance is still under a claim from ANSI, how does that impact? It should not. ANSI still is liable in our insurance company for that. So we'll continue to work with them. I will say that Tom and I have not been impressed with the response rate that we've been getting, and that's part of the reason that we say we know we'll get a response. I've worked with John Gibson for a number of years. I've never not had him respond to me in either a call or an email in 24 hours when I've asked a question of him. And you can see that for the same coverage, the cost is a little bit less, and it's not going to be a business that goes away. I think John's got something like 40 school districts that he works with for insurance. This is his practice.
Looks like it also includes umbrella, which ANSI doesn't.
Correct, yeah, and so I tried to explain what some of these are if you're not really familiar, but what umbrella does is if there's some kind of catastrophic event beyond what general liability would cover, that's where the umbrella kind of, covers you up. And then linebacker has nothing to do with football or phone. If some employee of the district were to do something that might not be a smart decision, that insurance specifically comes into play if the district gets into a lawsuit with that.
So do we currently have umbrella and linebacker or not?
I believe that's, so if you look at the chart that Tom did a great job putting together where he compares the cost and coverage, I believe that was probably part of their liability insurance, but not specifically drawn out, so you know you have that.
Gotcha.
Any questions? But again, this is an action item tonight because we've been waiting so long on ANSI. The end of the fiscal year is 3 weeks away, and the coverage would need to start July 1st, so we would need to let both companies know of any change.
Well, not that I think that they're, I'm pretty sure that everybody agrees with me. My least favorite phrase, it's a no-brainer, but you're down to dealing with one company, it's less expensive and more customer oriented.
That's a great summary.
So, in terms of who to pick going forward, I'm pretty sure it's not going to increase the responsiveness of the former company, but, I mean, it's eventually they're gonna have to cover it.
I mean, on top of that, like, you guys are the ones that deal with this the most, and if this is a company you feel more comfortable working with, like, I would trust that judgment as well.
The one touch point with EMC is, and they're great at what they do too.
Right, I think pre-claim, it was very clear, and then once April 18th happened, I mean, the claims process, the customer service is not,
Frustrating to deal with.
yes, it's been very slow.
Seems like an easy call to me.
Any other questions? If not, let's move on to board policy.
I do want to thank Ryan's a new member of that committee now, and then Crystal and Elliot as has been now for a year or so. This was the most extensive meeting that we've had to have. It was a full 2-hour meeting because the 5,000s deal with students and the 6,000s deal with finance. We had just been through the 5,000s in November. But we wanted to compare what our choices were then with the updates, and same thing, Dr. Lutsky would have taken the board through the 6,000s about a year ago in a couple of different segments. We wanted to take what the board had already looked at and approved, put those into our decision making, and even with that, we still had 18 specific policies that we talked about that night. This will be a first read, and then I almost hate to say it, we're hitting the home stretch. We have 3 series left, which should not be as heavy. Once we finish those, we can roll the whole policy over. Again, the goal has been to do that within a year. We're getting awfully close. I would think by August, we're gonna be able to do that. And then for the 4 of us that have served on those for a long time now, and we could include Hope in there too, we're only probably gonna have to meet about 3 times a year after this, which would be fantastic. And a lot less reading.
I'll miss it.
Thank you, guys. Any other questions? If not, we can move on to budget finance, May financial.
All right, numbers 4A, 4B, and 4C all kind of overlap and commingle a little bit, so I'll try and keep them high level, but again, you're gonna see repeat in themes. So first off, for the May summary, again, this is May year-to-date, consistent information which I show each month. May has very little revenue activity going into it, but one thing I do want to call out, actually, can you throw the other one up there, showing the revenues, is one thing to keep in mind with school finance. If you scroll down to the bottom, June is a very, very high activity month. If we look at the budget of 29 million through May, so that's 11 out of the 12 months, you're seeing your total there roughly 18 million or about 60%. So in that last month of June is when a lot of activity comes in from DPI. That's their final payments for the year. So we see a lot of funds coming in that month, as well as there's accounting functions that are credited or debited in June. Open enrollment in and out. We don't actually receive $1 million and pay out $1 million. The DPI nets that math out for us. Thankfully, we are slightly positive. So we will receive funds. And then property taxes that have not been received by June 30th from the municipalities, which is very, very common. That is then booked as a receivable because it's earned, but we actually receive that cash later, usually in July or August. So also, as you talk about short-term borrowing, this is a large component of what plays into that. On the expense side, expenses continue to look favorable. Some of that is driven by vacancy and when different things were brought back, which again will tie into future conversations. But on the expense side, a couple of large ones is Fund 10 will have its transfer to Fund 27. Fund 27 being the special education fund always has to end the year at a net 0. And then also the Fund 46 transfer to the capital improvement fund So those will be two large expenses that will be in June activity as well. So May is pretty slow, but June has a lot of activity and a lot of volume to it. Another thing to note that will tie into more the next two items, but keeping in mind the budget ends June 30th, new budget starts July 1st. We will not have a state budget on July 1st, and that will apply to every single school district. But just keeping in mind, as we talk about future budgets, we're using prior referendum data, the Baird model, we're using current assumptions. So if there was any significant changes at the state level, positively or negatively, those would not only impact Evansville, but every school district. So that's 4A.
Questions? Not? Move on to discussion on transfer fund 46.
Tom and I learned quite a bit from our discussion with the board about a year ago, less than a year ago at this time, when we started to talk about what the board wanted to do with the surplus at that point, between Fund 46, which is our capital projects fund, and then our fund balance, which again is not a certain amount of money that we have in a bank account just waiting, but is liquid throughout the year. So this year's been a very interesting year because when we had our annual meeting in September, we had no idea what the outcome of the operating referendum was going to be. But thanks to the stakeholders and taxpayers here in the Evansville Community School District, we passed the operational referendum and had those dollars come in. Because of the timing of that, we've talked quite a bit about how we would need to use year one of the referendum to help balance over the course of the next 3 years. Next year, we would be projecting a net neutral budget. And then Tom did a great job in transitioning here. We're not sure what those next 2 years are going to be with the state budget. They haven't, the Joint Finance Committee is just now getting started. So these are all projections, but we do know that we're gonna have to make sure that we have enough money in year 3 by using this surplus in year 1. I think we all knew that when the board voted on the $2.9 million for the next 3 years as the operational referendum. And we also knew as a board, as an administrative team, we were not going to want to cut anything that we said that we were going to do in year 3 because we didn't have enough money. So we've been very cautious with that. Now, because of that, when we get this year's referendum funds in the middle of the year, we know we have to save some, and we've promised the taxpayers, Jeff's building over at the high school, that we're going to address HVAC. We have a pretty good idea that that's going to cost about $1.25 million in heat pumps. We just confirmed about late last week that the best way to attack that problem at the high school is not in the controls, but it is in the heat pumps. In fact, we've already had JP Cullen here twice and have NAMI once. NAMI's going to come back out and they're going to do what's called a stress test. They're going to wait for one of these warm days. They're going to try to...
Been good.
Yes, they're going to bring that air conditioning as low as they can to see what's working well, what's not. They'll be able to identify the heat pumps that need to be replaced soonest. Plus, Jeff's got his own data on what rooms are hot and cold during the year. Typically, they run hot, not cold. So we pretty much know we're going to have to replace the heat pumps on the second floor of the high school where there's major issues there. And so part of that is not only saving for year 3, but making sure that we do what the taxpayers told us they wanted to do with that fund and work on HVAC at the high school. Even the projected surplus that we're looking at right now could change a bit as Tom gets into some of this, and I'll see if he's got anything to add. The board did, after that long discussion last year, put in quite a bit of money into Fund 46. So we're sitting at almost $750,000 now. If we were to add what Tom and I are suggesting, but again, you'd vote on that 2 weeks from now, approximately $800,000 more. Now you're looking at about $1.5 million. We've had about a $300,000 cushion in Fund 46 in case something does go wrong. But this would allow us to really do what we said we were gonna do with the taxpayers, fix the HVAC at the high school. We've hired back now at this point, our staff, and those were the two big things that we promised as part of that referendum. I'd feel great once we started changing out those heat pumps. The building feels better, to get some students to talk about that, some staff to talk about that, take some pictures, really publicize that, not only in the newspaper, but on social media, say, hey, we've kept our promise to you. So it's a good problem to have at this point. We're suggesting that the $800,000 next time, again, based on what you wanted to do last year, goes in. Our fund balance is really in pretty good shape. It's about 19%. Right around 20% is where you're going to always get if we have to take out money, if you go to referendum for capital at some point down the road. If you've got 20% in fund balance, that helps your bond rating, your borrowing rate. So we really feel like we're in a good spot. And remember, I think everybody knows this now, everybody learned a lesson last year. If we put it into Fund 46, you're going to get, last year it was a little bit higher, about 22%. This year it's about 17.5%, but 17.5% of that $800,000 is gonna come back to the district because it looks like we're spending money, and we are.
Does it come back into Fund 46 or
No,
where
it
does
comes
go?
back into the general fund.
Okay.
General aid the following year. Yep.
So, really to us, because we've already had this conversation a year ago, our fund balance is in pretty good shape. We know what we need to spend and what we're gonna have to do with HVAC. This would solve that problem. We wanna discuss it tonight so that when we bring it back as an action item next time, we know where that's at. Seth, of course, as a treasurer, I did reach out to him when I knew he was going to be on his business trip. You know how he feels, and that hasn't changed. He wants to put as much into 46 to take care of heating, cooling, air conditioning, ventilation in the district as possible. And if you look at the totals, really what we're doing is, we had Tom and I, the administrative team, we're not spending a lot of money purposely, right? We're very cautious with any kind of expenditures. And you're gonna see that this year. We didn't buy any real big capital projects. That's why you're gonna see some of this happen. And so we really can pre-plan. And so the next 2 years, we're taking that burden of what we were planning to put in, $400,000, that can now be cut in half, $200,000 each year to put into 46. And if you look at, if Paige looks at the very top, what we were projecting, Tom was projecting, at the end of 3 years, about a $57,000 surplus. Now that's about a $71,000 surplus. Again, some of this is without a state budget for the next 2 years. So there are projections, but we're feeling good about where we are right now because we have been cautious. And we knew we were gonna have to do this when we passed the referendum, that we couldn't just spend money without really thinking where every dollar is going.
Question, so the 17.5% that's down from 22% last year, what determines that percent? Do we expect
Tom's
it
got
to keep
that.
low?
That's, yeah, that's state driven, so that's a larger factor. It looks at your property valuation compared to everyone else. So when our percent goes down, it in essence kind of says we became a little bit more property rich, or our values may have increased a little bit greater than other values or the state average. So you'll see that shift every single year.
Trending in this direction in the future?
I do not know. And it will change each year. Evansville is consistently around the 20%. We're a district that's considered positively aided. And so there are districts that have a negative number. And so in essence, what it's saying or promoting is smaller districts or districts of this size to spend money. They don't want you to save, they don't want you to stockpile cash. And so by spending money on the students, they're rewarding you the following year. If you were to look at a very, very rich property municipality, they would be at a negative number. If we think of like a, lakefront property, yeah, Lake Geneva, Whitefish Bay, yeah, some of those, they can actually have, they're considered negatively aided, and the aid goes through a 3-tiered system, and so it's the third tier where you're receiving additional aid by spending.
Another question is, where would our fund balance need to be in order to avoid short-term borrowing?
That's significant,
Yes.
We're quite a ways away.
22% or 23%?
What are we borrowing each year now, Tom?
About $2 million. Now, what's,
Yeah.
yeah, and what's important to keep in mind is that's really for that November and January component. And it really ties back to that, we're receiving 40% of our revenue in June, and even that, some of that June is really hitting in July and August. You're actually receiving it after the year is already done. And so a lot of districts do short-term borrow. Our percentage would need to be pretty high, just from a mathematical standpoint of our expenses are 25 million. So I mean, our percentage would probably have to be close, well, on these new expenses with the referendum dollars in there too of spending 25 million, probably have to be closer to 30%.
Remind me how much we spend on our short-term borrowing and interest?
It's maybe 50 to 75,000. Rates are usually pretty favorable for school districts, yeah.
What percentage is?
Around 5%, yeah.
Yeah, so that's so much lower than 17, it should
Yeah.
work pretty easy.
Exactly, yeah. It's not like you're borrowing on a credit card, yeah, exactly.
And it's short-term borrowing.
Yeah.
I mean, the problem is like, the bills aren't annualized, right? When it's not monthly, you get an insurance bill, you have to pay 700,000, so that's, and your income's not the same, so.
Well, I have some like really fundamental questions. So you, in the middle of this, the report that's in the midst of the agenda, you have a little line item from the budget that says Fund 46 is beginning balance of $194,680. I couldn't find that anywhere in.
Yeah, that's just coming straight out of Skyward, Tom.
Yeah, and that would be
And actually,
that's a single row. There's, I think, 3 accounts that make that up.
It's probably not a great one, Melissa, because there's a whole bunch to the right that you're not being able to, you gotta scroll all the way over there. I don't know if everybody can see that then.
Oh, no, I did not realize that it went all the way.
Yeah,
So, okay, so there's where the $771,000.
Yeah, sorry about that, I couldn't.
Dollars of the fund balance, so we have Fund 46 is currently at 700, like $750,000 plus.
Yep.
Currently, you are projecting a $710,000 surplus for Fund 10, right? That's after all of our payments and expenditures are accounted for. Is that correct?
Where are you saying for the, yes, the budget amendment proposal, yes.
Fund 10
Would be,
surplus is projected at this point
Back to what you had up before,
Be
that would have the seven.
$710,000, right? Second paragraph,
No, you were right before, what you just had, yep, that's it.
second paragraph of your public content here. It says, the district still has a remaining surplus of $710,000 this year due to conservative spending. So you got about $1.5 million between Fund 46 and this is Fund 10 surplus. So, am I,
Yeah, you're there.
right, yeah.
all right. Now, we just talked tonight about adding a position, which I have no idea how much that would be. So, if,
Generally speaking, you're talking about $100,000 for an employee with salary and benefits.
okay. So, and then you said earlier there was another 2 positions that you still needed to fill, the Spanish teacher and, no.
Yeah, now those are already into that projection.
Okay, that's in the budget for next year already.
Correct,
It
it's
hasn't been
replacement.
hired.
Yes.
You just filled in the position salaries that had been.
Yes.
Okay. So we need to only keep back, like, what we know to fund the salary for Linda's sidekick, right?
Correct.
Okay. Cause I'm all for putting money in fund.
Sure.
46 too, I'm with Seth.
Can I piggyback on that real quick? So there were new positions that we created. Are those included in this budget?
Yes,
for
yeah, already,
26?
already paid for.
Thank you.
And I think you got a 5% raise and all that stuff.
Yeah, that's
So
all in
there's-
there.
that's all in there too. So
Yep. Yeah, everything's
Sure.
at a high level, yep, fives
As
and
a
threes.
placeholder,
Yeah.
whether
Now I'm
3 or
gonna bring up a little bit of a sore spot. Why are we not considering bringing back a building and grounds manager?
Honestly, at this point, remember, we did hire back, and I think Crystal had made mention of this when we did. We did hire back a combined position that's part maintenance, part custodial, and then part buildings and grounds. And that person is able to do,
Like an overseer?
yes, fill many of the needs that we have in the district. And that's functioning very well at this point. You know, in terms of like a gauge at how that department is doing and feeling right now, I would say the morale in that department is as high as it's been since I've been here, because we're nearly fully staffed now. The only thing we're looking for is second shift custodian for the fall at the middle school. So we've moved, we've really been fortunate. Like Tony, who used to be the head custodian at the high school, is now second shift over here in this building. Sai's done a great job in transitioning to the high school. It's really in pretty good shape. I would say that the thing that you would look for in a buildings and grounds director is a lot of dealing with vendors and things like that. And between Steve and Tom, that's happening. Oftentimes, some of their days with just a buildings and grounds director is people cold calling them to try to sell them product. That typically doesn't happen with Tom and Steve because they're busy doing their other jobs. Yeah. Now, at some point down the road, could I see that coming back? I would. It still would make me nervous in this when we don't know what's going to happen in the next 2 years. And I think I know you weren't part of those discussions, Melissa.
I just trying to get caught up and I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
but no, we really did talk about what positions are we going to hire back that are the closest to kids and have direct impact on students. And that's probably one that's one of the furthest away from that.
All right, so any other questions? If not, let's move on to, additional budget amendments.
Not a whole lot to add before I turn it over to Tom here, but at the end of each year, so again, we developed this budget, had it passed in September, and actually at the end of October, and then about 3 weeks later or so, we know the referendum passes. And so anytime that you have that sort of shift, you're going to have budget amendments. Even when things go remarkably close to what you predicted, you're going to have budget amendments at the end of the year. I even included the state statute that says this. So really just Tom has to update his budget, upload it into DPI so that they know what changes have been made. Other than that, Tom mentioned like the Fund 27 transfer into special education, which is usually one of the major things that has to happen at this time of the year with budget amendments because you don't know what that number is going to look like. Anything else that you want to add, Tom?
No, I'm gonna keep it very high level. When you open the documents, they look very busy. That is because with referendum passing, we didn't know what we were gonna bring back, when we were gonna bring back, who we were gonna bring back. So when that initial budget was passed by the board, we essentially put 20% into the Fund 46 transfer and 80% into salaries. As we know, 80% of our budget is salaries, but we had no idea who we were bringing back, all of that information. So it looks like a lot of busyness, but essentially it's actually favorable. It's going from a past budget of 112 to roughly 310 as a net. And then actually, if you tie it back to this document, the budget amendment is down They're right at the bottom of the page. This one is rounded, so that's why the last three digits are zeros. So this is the high-level summary. So looks like a lot of movement, but it is actually favorable, and we're looking at a favorable, good year. The other thing we do need to be mindful of is the budget drives what can be transferred. So the budget amendment does have the 800,000 in there, which then gives the board the authority to transfer up to 800,000 at the next meeting. If we did not have that in the budget amendment, we would have to redo another budget amendment.
That's why we're tying these all together, so we're not repeating our work here.
Yep, so it's.
Repeat that again? 'Cause I didn't quite catch.
So you have all the budget amendment information will tie back to the summary page of the budget amendment proposal. And the budget amendment proposal does have the 800,000 in, so it's giving authority up to 800,000 for the board to approve that transfer up to $800,000.
Transfer to
Fund
Fund
46,
46.
correct, yep. And then the net would be that 310,000 going into or staying in Fund 10, fund balance. If you were to do a different transfer, it would just be that math. If you did 700,000, 410,000 would go into Fund 10 balance.
This is not computing to me.
So it looks like you've just adjusted the budget to what we actually did
Correct.
and are now, if we approve this, that it gives us the ability to transfer up to 800,000
Correct.
into Fund 46.
Yep. There are, at conferences, I've actually talked to a couple of districts that actually wait until their year is closed and then do their budget amendment, because then it ties back to actuals.
Well, we
that's-
don't know, I mean, at this point, we're only projected 710,000 surplus, so we don't have 800,000 to transfer in. I mean, we already have
So-
700,000 in there.
This would be including any transfers, so actually on this summary document, you can actually see the budget proposal, at the includes the 800,000, so that Fund 46 allocation is part of that expense. And then even after that expense would then leave still 310,000 left. So this is the high level summary condensed.
We're talking about 1.5 million between Fund 46 and our surplus. I'm sorry.
The 1.5 number might be the current 700,000 plus 800,000. So
700
Fund 40,
plus- Yeah, 771 in Fund 46, plus 700,000 in Fund 10 balance. It's like 1.5 million. So now you've got accounted for, oh, you could still have some held back in Fund 46. You're only allocating 800,000 of it. See, I don't do so well with truncated budgets at all. All right.
Any other questions? If not, let's move on to business action items. First on the docket is approval of budget amendments. I'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion to approve the school district's budget amendments for the 2024-25 school year as presented.
There's a motion, is there a second?
Second.
There's a second. Any discussion? If not, let's vote.
Oops.
I got this one.
I didn't get one yet.
That's positive. I got it too.
I did not say anything.
I did not get it.
Well,
It didn't get it last time.
okay, well, hold on a minute, let's
Let's ground.
give it a minute.
That's what I get from there.
That's what I get for saying, oh, you have Kathy's computer.
This is not cooperating today. No luck yet?
No, nothing.
Okay, let me try, I'm gonna, Open it again and see if you got it. Any luck?
I got it.
Not.
You're the only one?
I got it. I've already voted.
Okay.
I get it.
I say aye.
I'll
Alright,
say-
that works.
I'll say aye.
Crystal,
I already voted.
you had an eye?
I eyed.
Okay.
So motion carries 5-0. Next is I'll entertain a motion, approval of property and vehicle insurance for 25-26.
I will move to approve Tricor and EMC for the school district's property and vehicle insurance beginning on July 1, 2025 as presented.
There's a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? If not, let's vote.
Oh, look at that.
Snappy that time.
I did not get this one.
What is happening? All right, Elliot, would you like to vote?
Aye.
Mitch?
Aye. So motion carries 5-0.
Yes.
All right, motion carries 5-0. Last is consent. Does anybody want anything removed? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve consent.
I move to approve consent agenda items A through C.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a second. Let's vote.
All right, let's see how it goes here, guys.
I got it.
I'll have it. Aye.
Okay.
Here, I from me.
All right, consent is approved. Next is future agenda. Does anybody want anything changed or added?
Just as a heads up, it is, that last meeting in June is very heavy with year-end reports. So I probably will not have a district administrator report because of that. The other thing that I would like to ask is, we do have some changes to the employee handbook that we're recommending. So on the personnel committee is, Hope, but also, Mitch and Elliot. Would Mitch and Elliot, would either of you be available, or hopefully both, either on the 23rd or 24th, so that the personnel committee could review those employee handbook changes before they're brought to the board?
23rd, 24th June, right?
Yep, that's a Monday or Tuesday.
Yeah, I think I can make both work.
Better for you, Elliot.
Just let me check one thing.
Probably 24th would be better, but I could make either work.
Okay. What time could you start? Could we do 5 p.m. or is that too early for you?
If you can do the 23rd, it'd be better for me,
Okay, I'll count on that.
just because my boy's got a game.
What time to start?
I could probably do 5, yeah.
All right, we'll count on 5 p.m. I'll send out an invite for that. Thank you.
All right, we're good with the agenda?
So why are we doing the Fund 46? I mean, we don't really have to do that until July, right? It's not due until July 30th, is it? The Fund 46 transfer?
Correct, yeah. But with our business manager situation, we wanted to make sure that was wrapped up with Tom.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
I just want to say I noticed on the staff changes that Miss Renee Whitkey-Grossman is leaving. Both of my children have had her as teachers, and she was a wonderful teacher, and I'm really sorry to see her go, but I wish her the best, and I just want to express gratefulness for her being here. So.
All right, thank you. Any other comments? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor, or do we want to vote, see if it works the last time?
That's just C. It's just C for fun.
Why am I getting a pop-up for Subway here?
Yeah, John.
is talking to you.
Yeah, this one. It's a coupon.
Crystal, Mitch, nothing?
Nothing.
I got it.
I got this.
Aye.
Hi.
We're adjourned.
I love technology.